Me again. Are you sick of me? I hope not. And I hope you subscribed. You knew that was what I was going to say. I had a great conversation with Jessiah from Pondering Politics podcast. We got some breaking news in the middle of it about Jim Comey apparently going to be indicted in a few days. So tune in for the conversation and please subscribe and stay part of our community. Thanks. Welcome to Raging Moderates. I'm Jessica Tarlov, and today I'm joined by my friend and the host of Pondering Politics, one of my favorite shows, and I'm guessing, if you're watching this, one of your favorite shows, Jessiah Eberlin. Jessiah, thanks for being here.
No, it's my pleasure, Jess. I was really excited for the invitation. I got to tell you, when I told my wife, she's like, oh my God, I'm so happy for you. We had a big hug. It was like a whole thing. So you made my day.
Now I feel like I'm in your marriage, which is not in a non-governmental oversight way, but I love that.
For now. Now, if you ever join the Trump administration, then I'll be deeply worried because I'm sure I'm going to have like an overseer at all times if this keeps going the way it's going.
I think there's a pretty much 0% chance of that happening. So you guys are going to be just fine. Yeah.
Touche. Yeah, that would be a plot twist if you join the Trump administration, given comments that the president has made. That'd be a 180.
I don't know. He has a lot of losers, according to him and his administration. Anyway, I can go work for Lil Marco. All right, we have news. As we're taping, it's the afternoon on the East Coast, and we're following a tragic story of a shooting at an ICE facility in Dallas. The gunman was killed from a self-inflicted gunshot. A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson says the FBI is treating this as an act of targeted violence. Importantly, none of the people shot were law enforcement. They were all undocumented folks who were in a truck at the time. Jessiah, what are you thinking about this shooting?
So as a general heuristic of mine, one of the things I'd like to do when there are acts of violence like this is I try to wait for more facts to come in. I have been burned early in my political commentary career for jumping on a thing, thinking that we have the facts, and obviously stories develop in a way which can totally surprise you. We've even seen, like with the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk, the facts as we understood them changed dramatically in the first 10 minutes. Remember, there was a suspect in custody, and then it turned out to be not the suspect. When I saw the headlines and from the preliminary research I've done on this, of course, it's an extraordinary tragedy. I have my criticisms of ICE as an institution, and those persist even after this tragedy. But anytime there's any sort of targeted or political violence, the first thing you have to do is condemn it vociferously and publicly and wait as the facts continue to develop. And then we go from there. And then we make policy changes or recommendations for behavior once the facts lay themselves out.
How grown up of you to take that approach. And I try to do that as well, though usually I have to go on camera right away, which is what is going to happen after we're done talking here. And, you can't just say like, I'd like to wait for the facts to come out and I'm ceding my 90 seconds to you. But one thing that did happen very early was that Kash Patel, our FBI director, tweeted a picture of the bullet casings, which said anti-ICE on it.
Right.
And that stuck out to me for two reasons. One, the usual lack of professionalism on the part of Kash Patel and those in the Trump administration. But then two, and we don't know a whole lot right now, but when you see something like that and consider what happened, and we should note as well that there were shots fired into the ICE facility itself, and all signs point to the fact that he did want to kill law enforcement. But everything just feels like a big shit post now to me. And you look at that with what Tyler Robinson did as well in assassinating Charlie Kirk, and even in his text messages to his roommate where he says like, haha, I just want to make them on Fox News have to read, I don't remember what it was, like, oh,
something like you're gay, LMAO or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And the meme from Helldivers 2 and the furry community or whatever you're supposed to. I'm aging myself. I don't hang out in furry chats.
I'm 34, and I'll be honest with you, as having played video games before, I was totally out of my element when they were like, that's a Helldivers 2 reference. And my first question was, what the hell is a Helldivers 2? And so I had to be walked through it, so no judgment.
But that's what's sticking out to me the most. Like, people are too violent. The rhetoric is ratcheted up to a level that is dangerous for all of us, no matter how you vote or how you present your political beliefs. But you have these kids, the alleged shooter, I shouldn't say alleged, he turned the gun on himself, was born in 1996. We're watching an epidemic of babies that are out there committing these crimes and branding them essentially as memes.
Yeah, I had a conversation. I do one live stream a week called Live and Learn with some co-hosts of mine. And I remember after the Charlie Kirk assassination, we talked about, like, obviously political violence has been a staple of the United States since the beginning. And the fact that, this country was founded on political violence, right? It's relatively minor, but it happens. And it seems like we're seeing greater instances of high profile political violence like this. And when we were discussing the memification of it, I'm like, that seems to be the really new thing here. Like, there's always been politically motivated violence, but the nihilism that we're associating with some of these more recent acts, and now you have this one here. Again, I'm sure we're going to learn a lot about motivations and everything else, but to have two back-to-back high-profile instances of what appear to be political violence and like memery and nihilism involved in it, that's something, quite frankly, I'm interested in hearing your co-host Scott Galloway speak about too, because as somebody who's, an advocate for young men and healthy masculinity, I feel like this is in his milieu addressing, because this seems to be even more of an issue as time goes on.
Plus access to guns, which is the common denominator in all of
Right.
this. I want to play this clip of J.D. Vance talking about what he thinks we should all be taking away from this shooting.
Let me just leave you with one final thought here. Look, I was asked earlier today by a reporter I actually like, but a reporter who said, well, don't both sides have crazy people? And of course, obviously, country of 330 million people, of course, both sides have crazy people. But if you look at the political violence in our country over the last couple of months, the last couple of years, it is not a both sides problem. It is primarily on one side of the political aisle. So, if we are going to truly go after the political violence in this country, we need the Democratic leadership of Washington, D.C. to look in the mirror. We need them to renounce all political violence. When a poor kid like Charlie Kirk is gunned down in cold blood, we need them to start with condemning the violence instead of condemning something that Charlie Kirk said that they did.
So, like, literally must have blacked out or was deaf for an entire week following the completely tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk. And also, he's just factually wrong about who is committing political violence. And look no further than the DOJ website, where they took down the report that categorizes ideologically motivated violence and shows outsized levels for right-wing extremism. Then it was Islamic extremism, and coming from the left was below that. Also, the fact that we had another school shooting on the same day that Charlie Kirk was murdered by a little neo-Nazi kid that was radicalized online. So I go back to the well over and over, and I say, maybe today's the day that our leaders are going to do better in a moment like this. And I continue to be disappointed.
Yeah, I'm fighting the urge to stand up and jump on my soapbox here, because this is something I've ranted about quite a bit here recently. First off, notice the cherry-picked time horizons there. In the past couple of months, past couple of years, as you say, he's wrong on the facts even there. But it's interesting how apparently, political violence from 3 years ago or 2 years ago or 4 years ago by Trump supporters against, judges or the children of judges or Democratic lawmakers or a pipe bomb threat sent to the DNC, et cetera, and so forth.
Or people shopping at Walmart.
Or people shopping at Walmart, or attacks on churches and grocery stores by right-wingers and all these things. So the cherry picking is so obvious, and Vance tries to present himself as a smooth operator, but he just gives the game away right there. So that was really frustrating. But the other thing is this, to your point, when Charlie Kirk, I remember vividly, because I was on my phone. I wasn't able to do any sort of content creation at the time. And so I was just on my phone and I was getting text messages. A good friend of mine was the one that Charlie was debating when Charlie was shot. And Hunter, who has also been traumatized by this. And Democratic leader after elected Democrat after Democratic leader after former president universally condemned the violence against Kirk specifically and political violence in general. So even what J.D. Vance is asking for in bad faith actually was given a full-throated condemnation of political violence, but it's never enough, because what they really want is a false admission by Democrats that you all are perfect, it's all our fault, it should be politicized, we're inferior to you in every way. And it just disgusts me, because Donald Trump is the president of the United States, and there is no politician, and you've made this case on The Five, I've covered you making this case on The Five and other places, there is no politician, none, not one Democrat that any MAGA Republican can cite that has said more vicious, incendiary things about their political opponents than Donald Trump. And You know, I'm not much of a gamer, but I do like Marvel movies and I love Spider-Man. And Spider-Man's uncle said, with great power comes great responsibility. And when you have the most power, which the sitting president always does, you have the most responsibility. So Trump has more responsibility than any elected Democrat to lower the temperature, and he doesn't. And I am so sick and tired, because this is a bipartisan issue. We will never get an actual solution because we don't have a bipartisan interest in solving the problem. So I apologize for the rant, but just hearing this shit from JD Vance and others, it's just like, it totally misses the point.
Yeah, well, another area where I feel like they've missed the point, and JD Vance was also talking about this, was the First Amendment infringement issue surrounding what happened with Jimmy Kimmel. I'm sure that you saw his monologue. You've probably already posted about it. But JD Vance was up there in that same press conference saying this wasn't a First Amendment issue. It was a business decision, ignoring the fact that the president, not only what Brendan Carr said, he said that was just a joke online, wasn't, but that the president had nothing to do with it. When Donald Trump, God bless him for it, he just comes out and refutes any cover-up story that they try to go with every single time. Like Pam Bondi tries to walk back the hate speech exception. And then he's like, no. Actually, yeah, anything I don't like, that's cool. We should go after that. What are your thoughts on Kimmel and what the right's doing?
So, yeah, I mean, the Kimmel thing is the most egregious act of censorship we've seen from the federal government in decades. I'm not going to say it's the only one. I'm not saying that there aren't, listen, because we hear this all the time with respect to the Twitter files. What role should the federal government play in relationship to social media companies? And the fact of the matter is, there's not a total separation. Of course, the Trump administration engaged with social media companies all the time. And they actually helped, both the Biden and Trump administrations probably helped avert acts of terrorism as a consequence of that, because you have to engage. There has to be a dialogue there. Where the line is drawn, I understand it can be murky and we need to suss that out. But with Jimmy Kimmel, there was a bright line there. Brendan Carr of the FCC said we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And all the contemporaneous reporting on this was very clear, because I've had Trump supporters say, well, the reporting says that this was just a business decision. Bullshit. It's not true. The Hollywood Reporter, Rolling Stone, the Wall Street Journal made it very clear after Carr said what he said. That is when affiliates at Nexstar and Sinclair and ABC started to convene their emergency meetings, because that's what stirred it up. We have never seen any sort of remotely analogous example from the Biden administration. And Jimmy Kimmel's return, I mean, it blew the roof off the ratings. It has, like, at the time I recorded a video about it several hours ago, 11 million views on YouTube. And I mean, it was just a really powerful performance. And by the way, note that many other prominent Republicans and some even MAGA Republicans even found the principle to call this out. Ben Shapiro called this out. Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, a bunch of people called this out because they recognize that this will set a precedent. And mark my words, Jess, eventually there will be a Democrat who
promise?
Yeah, just end it right there. Yeah.
Are you sure?
I am sure that at one point in the future, I'm not saying that we will be here for it, but in the distant future, there will be a liberal. But what's worse is there will be a liberal who will have some of Donald Trump's ruthlessness, and he will use this precedent, or she will use this precedent against Republicans, and they're going to regret that sort of thing. So I think it's in everybody's best interest to tell Brendan Carr to back off and not issue these sorts of threats against people like Jimmy Kimmel.
Well, I think Brendan Carr got the memo. I don't know if he'll be emboldened with Trump out there just kind of saying, 16 million wasn't enough. I'm going to go back to the well. But, Bob Iger really hurt himself with this, because now ABC has to be the example for the industry. Everyone's going to be following that super closely, obviously. And Donald Trump has made it so that Jimmy Kimmel has a job for life. Every kind of few years when he renews, Kimmel always says that he thinks about it, right? Like, what does my life look like? Maybe I want to do something different, spend more time with my kids. He could be there until he's 90 now, after the precedent that they've set.
And then run for the Democratic presidency at age 90.
And maybe win.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. At age 90.
Yeah.
He'd be like the median Democratic politician age. He would still have 20 years worth of a career left in him at that point.
Wisdom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Age and wisdom. So some breaking news. I'm used to the Chiron coming out, but I don't have it here. Former FBI Director Jim Comey is expected to be indicted on criminal charges in the coming days in a federal court in Virginia.
Ooh. Oh, shit. I did not see that.
This is where Eric Siebert, the U.S. attorney who was just removed, this is his jurisdiction. We know that Donald Trump was all hot and bothered about that. castigating Pam Bondi in a very public way. I thought it was a DM gone awry, but it's just the way that our president talks. What do you make of this?
I mean, listen, again, I try to be as objective as possible, and I fully
We don't
admit
know a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and I am totally biased against Trump. My default assumption is I'm going to wait until I see the substance of the charges, but I have to note the suspicious theme because you have his former national security advisor, whose name escapes me, not Michael Bolton, John Bolton.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump is prosecuting Michael Bolton, breaking
For the
news.
hair.
Yeah, John Bolton and now James Comey, who these are people ranked very highly on Trump's shit list. And so, well, here's what I will say. Obviously going to wait for the charges, but I'm not inclined to give Trump the benefit of the doubt on this. I think that they have not earned the benefit of the doubt on this, Jess. I think it is fair to react to this news and go, okay, you combine it with the Siebert situation, the investigation of Bolton, and now this, two iconic high-profile opponents and critics of Donald Trump. It's not looking good to me. I am willing to have my mind change, but my default is this is sus as hell, as the kids would say.
As the kids, you're a kid to me at just 34. I would agree. And I think if, you've been tweeted about or Truth Socialed about, and then it happens a few days later that something funky is going on. And we should note, in defense of Eric Siebert and actually in defense of Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, they both wanted Eric Siebert to stay on. And they thought that he was good for the job. So this is really that kind of personal enemies list that we know Donald Trump keeps as something in his vault, and Kash Patel actually writes down to make us all more comfortable with the current FBI situation.
Well, the president would never let competence or the facts get in the way of a good retribution, right? Good vendetta.
Yeah. MAGA now means revenge, basically. And that's what has become clear in the wake of Charlie's tragic murder. They don't care anymore if Tom Homan, who allegedly took $50,000 in cash, they don't care. And I don't know how we're going to figure out how to get through the next 3.5 years up against that.
Well, even afterwards, that's the thing is we joked about, a Democrat ever winning again. I'm confident that will happen. It might be much harder than it needs to be, which is a source of anxiety for me. But the question is what happens next, because not to, drag this on, but, I would argue President Biden tried to unify the country. His DOJ was reluctant to go after Donald Trump in both the classified documents case and January 6th. And there are a lot of people, myself included, who say you can't have unity without some sort of responsibility, I guess I would say. So this is where both sides are not particularly inclined to just let the past go. I would just simply disagree that MAGA, I don't think that their vendettas are well established, but I think the Democratic Party is going to have this question, who the next candidate we nominate, how are they going to deal with the abuses of power by the Trump administration? And that's going to probably be an existential question.
Totally. It'll be interesting to see how it figures in the primary and how pugnacious, frankly, people think that the relative nominees are. Gavin Newsom is doing himself a lot of good.
100%.
Now I'm depressed, but thrilled to have had you. Thanks for joining me.
No, I really appreciate it, Jess.